Dr. Lyra Val stood at the observation deck of the research vessel Asteria, watching the dead star system drift past. The binary stars had long since collapsed, leaving behind a graveyard of frozen planets and asteroid fields. After 15 years of studying extinct civilizations, she thought she'd grown accustomed to the silence of dead worlds. She was wrong. "Dr. Val," the ship's AI chimed softly, "the quantum resonance scan is complete. You'll want to see this." Lyra turned from the viewport, her iridescent scales shifting from deep blue to an alert amber. "Show me, Araya." The holographic display materialized before her, showing a complex pattern of quantum fluctuations emanating from the system's third planet. What remained of it, anyway? The world had been torn apart eons ago, its fragments forming a ring of debris around one of the dead stars. "The signal pattern is unlike anything in our database," Araya continued, "but it bears markers consistent with intentional transmission. Someone wanted this to be found." Lyra's tail twitched, a habit from her species' predatory past that emerged when she was onto something significant. "How old?" "Initial analysis suggests approximately 100,000 standard years." Lyra's scales rippled with disbelief. "That's impossible. The only civilization known to have achieved quantum communications that far back was—" She trailed off, her heart's beating faster. "Araya, alert the senior research team. Priority 1. Within minutes, the Asteria's primary research lab hummed with activity. Dr. Kexidin, the ship's quantum physicist, his crystalline form refracting light as he moved, was already analyzing the signal patterns. Professor Mira Toth, their linguistics expert, her cybernetic interfaces whirring softly, worked on decoding potential language markers. "The signal structure is remarkable," Kex said, his voice resonating like wind through crystal. "It's using quantum entanglement principles we've only theorized about. The preservation method alone is beyond our current understanding." Mira's cybernetic eyes whirred as they adjusted focus. "The base coding structure, it's not random. There are repeating patterns that suggest language, but it's unlike any we've encountered. Yet something about it feels familiar." "That's because it's human," Lyra said quietly, causing the room to fall silent. Her scales had shifted to a deep purple, the color of intense focus among her people. "The quantum signatures match fragments we found in other human ruins, but this is by far the most intact example we've ever discovered." The tension in the room was palpable. Humans were more legend than history, a cautionary tale of a species that had reached too far, too fast. Their sudden disappearance 100,000 years ago had left the galaxy with more questions than answers. "If this is truly of human origin," Kex began, his crystalline form vibrating with excitement, "it could revolutionize our understanding of quantum physics. Their technological advancement was far beyond what we previously estimated." "The question is," Mira interjected, her cybernetic implants processing data streams, "what were they trying to tell us? And why go to such lengths to preserve the message?" Lyra was about to respond when the ship's lights flickered. A cold sensation, like ice water down her spine, made her scales shift to a warning red. In 15 years of xenorchaeology, she'd learned to trust her instincts. "Araya," she called out, "run a full diagnostic on ship systems." "Scanning," the AI responded, detecting unusual quantum fluctuations throughout the ship. "Energy patterns are irregular. They appear to be resonating with the signal." "Shut it down," Lyra ordered, but Kex raised a crystalline hand. "Wait, the signal. It's changing. The quantum state is collapsing into something more coherent. I think it's responding to our presence." The holographic display erupted with new data streams. The seemingly random quantum fluctuations began arranging themselves into distinct patterns. Mira's cybernetic eyes whirred frantically as she processed the incoming data. "It's decoding itself," she whispered. "The signal. It's not just a message. It's alive." The lab's temperature dropped several degrees. Equipment sparked with unusual energy discharges. And through it all, The quantum patterns continued to shift and change, like a door slowly opening after 100,000 years. Lyra watched as the first coherent fragments began to emerge from the chaos. Her scales had gone completely white, a color her species reserved for moments of profound discovery or mortal danger. Sometimes, as she was beginning to suspect, those two things were one and the same. The message began to take form, and with it, the first words humanity had spoken to the galaxy in 100,000 years materialized before them. What they read made their blood run cold. To any who find this, we were wrong. They are not dead. They are not gone. And now that you've received this message, they know you're here. Your only hope lies in what we left behind. Find it quickly. They are already on their way. The message pulsed on the holographic display, its warning casting an ethereal glow across the faces of the research team. Lyra's scales had settled into a mottled pattern of white and gray, uncertainty mixing with fear. RIA, begin recording all quantum fluctuations, she ordered. Kex, I need to know if these energy patterns match anything in our historical database. The crystalline physicist's form sparkled as he processed the data streams. Nothing matches exactly, but there are similarities to phenomena recorded in restricted archives, files dating back to the Great Collapse. Mira's cybernetic eyes narrowed. The Great Collapse, when 17 advanced civilizations simultaneously went dark across the galaxy. Traditional history suggests a natural phenomenon, but what if it wasn't? Lyra finished, her tail lashed anxiously as she studied the continuing stream of data. What if it was them, whoever they are? The ship shuddered, not the familiar vibration of the quantum drive, but something deeper, as if reality itself was rippling around them. Warning lights flashed across multiple consoles. Hull integrity at 97%. Araya announced, detecting spatial distortions throughout the vessel. Dr. Val, the quantum signal, it's expanding. New text materialized in the holographic display. If you're reading this, you've activated the quantum beacon. It was the only way we could ensure this message would survive. You need to understand what happened to us. What's coming for you? We called them the harvesters. We thought they were a natural phenomenon at first, strange distortions in space-time that seemed to follow our quantum communication networks. By the time we realized they were conscious, it was too late. They don't exist in our dimension. They press against the fabric of space-time like fingers pressing against a membrane, creating ripples in reality itself. And they feed, not on matter or energy, but on consciousness itself. The more advanced a civilization becomes, the brighter it shines to them. We were a beacon in the dark, and we led them straight to our door. The message paused, new data streams organizing themselves. The temperature in the lab dropped further, frost forming on the edges of the equipment. Spatial distortions increasing, Araya reported. Unknown energy signatures detected in multiple sections of the ship. Kex's crystalline form vibrated with agitation. These readings, they're similar to the quantum fluctuations described in the message. As if something's pressing against reality, Lyra whispered. Her scales had shifted to deep crimson. Danger. Araya, initiate emergency protocols. Prepare the quantum drive for. The ship lurched violently, throwing them all off balance. Emergency lights bathed the lab in red as the message continued to unfold. We fought them. For decades, we fought them. We developed weapons that could harm beings that didn't fully exist in our dimension. We created shields that could stabilize reality itself. But for every victory, they grew stronger, learning from each encounter. They were patient. They were endless. And they were hungry. In our final days, we realized we couldn't defeat them, not conventionally, but we could prepare those who would come after us. We scattered our knowledge across the galaxy, hidden in quantum vaults that would only reveal themselves to civilizations advanced enough to understand them. This signal you found is a key. Coordinates follow. Find our last repository. Inside is everything we learned about them, every weapon we developed, every defense we created. Most importantly, it contains our final solution, the one we never had time to implement, our last gift to the future. But hurry. The beacon that allowed you to find this message will also draw their attention. They never truly left. They've been waiting in the spaces between spaces, watching civilizations rise, waiting for one advanced enough to be worth harvesting. You have days, perhaps hours, before they begin to manifest fully in your reality. Your ship's quantum systems will attract them first. Watch for reality distortions, for impossible readings on your instruments, for shadows that move against the light. One last warning. Don't trust what you see. They learn quickly, adapting to each species they encounter. They'll use your own perceptions against you. The only thing you can trust is the archive. Find it. Use it. Run. The message ended, replaced by a series of coordinates pointing to a system on the edge of known space. The lab had grown so cold that Mira's cybernetic components were beginning to frost over. Multiple hull breaches detected, Araya announced, her usual calm voice carrying an edge of urgency. But there are no physical ruptures. Space itself appears to be fracturing. Lyra looked at her team, her scales now pulsing between crimson and white. Plot a course to those coordinates, maximum speed. Kex, begin analyzing those quantum patterns. I want to know everything about how humans manage to fight these things. Mira, download every bit of data from that message. We're going to need it all. She turned to the viewport, watching as strange distortions began to ripple across the visible starfield. In the reflection of the reinforced glass, she could have sworn she saw something move, a shadow that didn't match any of their positions in the lab. When she turned to look directly at it, it was gone. But she knew, with a certainty that made her scales go ice-white, that they were no longer alone on the ship. The race to humanity's last archive had begun, and something ancient and hungry was waking up to give chase. The Asteria emerged from quantum space near the coordinates specified in the human message, its hull creaking under the strain of their desperate flight. They'd lost 3 decks to spatial anomalies during the journey, sections of the ship simply ceasing to exist in normal spacetime. Lyra stood at the command console, her scales shifting between alert amber and tactical blue as she studied the scene before them. The star system was ancient, its red dwarf star barely providing enough light to illuminate the handful of dead worlds orbiting it. But it was the third planet that drew their attention. Quantum signatures detected, Araya announced. Multiple sources, all matching the original signal's pattern. Life signs? Lyra asked, though she already suspected the answer. None detected. The planet appears to have been dead for approximately 100,000 years. Kex moved his crystalline form closer to the sensors, fragmenting light into rainbow patterns across the bridge. The planet's core is cold, its atmosphere long since stripped away. But these energy readings, they're incredible. The entire planet appears to be threaded with quantum-entangled particles. A quantum computer the size of a planet. Mira breathed, her cybernetic eyes whirring as they processed the data. The scale of engineering required. Look, Lyra interrupted, pointing to a section of the planet's surface. Those structures aren't natural. The holographic display zoomed in on a vast complex of geometric shapes carved into the dead world's surface. The structures were massive, each 1 kilometer across, arranged in patterns that seemed to shift and change the longer you looked at them. They're not just buildings, Kex observed, his crystalline form vibrating with excitement. They're quantum-focusing arrays. The humans turned the entire planet into some sort of massive information storage system. A violent shudder ran through the ship. Lyra's scales flashed crimson as warning alerts blared across multiple stations. Spatial distortions detected, Araya warned. Similar to previous encounters but stronger. They appear to be following us. We need to move quickly, Lyra decided. Prepare a landing team. Full quantum shielding protocols. Whatever's hunting us, we need to reach that archive before it reaches us. The descent to the planet's surface was treacherous. Without an atmosphere, they had to rely on the ship's quantum drives to maintain stability, all while reality itself seemed to twist and bend around them. The landing craft touched down in a vast plaza surrounded by towering structures that defied Euclidean geometry. Lyra led the team out onto the surface, their quantum shields creating bubbles of stable spacetime around them. The structures loomed overhead, their surfaces covered in patterns that seemed to move when viewed from the corner of the eye. The entrance should be. Mira began, but stopped as the ground beneath them hummed to life. Lines of light began spreading outward from their feet, racing along channels carved into the planet's surface. A voice echoed through their comm systems, ancient but clear. Quantum consciousness detected. Species verification in progress. Warning: Level 5 entities detected in proximity. Emergency protocols engage. The ground split open before them, revealing a massive doorway descending into the planet's depths. The voice continued. Welcome, inheritors. You have found humanity's last archive. Please proceed quickly. The dimensional barriers are weakening. They descended into darkness that was soon illuminated by strips of quantum light pulsing along the walls. The tunnel led them deeper into the planet's core, where they found something that made even Kex's crystalline form go still with awe. A vast chamber opened before them, its walls lined with quantum processing cores that stretched beyond sight. At its center floated a sphere of pure energy, contained within fields of force that bent light itself around them. This is it, Mira whispered, her cybernetic systems struggling to process the sheer volume of data surrounding them. Humanity's last archive. Their final legacy. The sphere pulsed, and a holographic figure materialized before them. A human female, her form transparent but startlingly detailed. I am Aria Prime, the guardian of this facility. We have waited long for beings capable of reaching this place, but I sense you are pursued by those we sought to warn you about. Lyra stepped forward, her scales shifting to diplomatic green. The harvesters, we received your warning message. Then you know the danger. They consume consciousness itself, growing stronger with each civilization they devour. We fought them for decades, but in the end, we could only prepare for this moment, when another species would rise high enough to draw their attention. The hologram gestured, and the sphere of energy pulsed brighter. This archive contains everything. Our weapons, our defenses, our understanding of their nature. But most importantly, it contains the key to our final solution. A weapon we theorized, but never had time to construct. A way to seal the dimensional barriers permanently. The facility shuddered. Above them, through kilometers of rock and metal, they could hear the Asteria's warning sirens. Multiple breaches detected. Aria's voice came through their comms. Spatial anomalies are. They're taking shapes. Doctor, there are things moving through the ship. The human hologram's expression grew urgent. They're manifesting faster than they did in our time. They've grown stronger, learned from their hibernation. You must act quickly. Access the archive. Learn what we knew. Complete what we started. Mira was already interfacing with the nearest terminal, her cybernetic systems downloading data at maximum capacity. Kex studied the quantum cores, his crystalline form resonating with their energy. But Lyra's attention was drawn to something else. Shadows moving in impossible ways along the chamber walls. Her scales shifted to pure white as she realized the truth. They weren't just reading humanity's last message. They were about to relive their last stand. The archive chamber trembled as reality buckled around them. Lyra watched in horror as the shadows on the walls began to take form. Shapes that shouldn't exist in three-dimensional space, twisting and folding in ways that made her eyes hurt. Download status, she demanded, her scales fluctuating between combat red and warning amber. 60% complete, Mira responded, her cybernetic interfaces glowing hot with the strain of processing the vast amounts of data. But there's something else happening. The archive. It's not just giving us information. It's activating something. The human hologram nodded. The Quantum Defense Network, humanity's last gift to the galaxy. We knew we couldn't survive, but we could prepare. Hidden throughout the galaxy are thousands of quantum resonators, waiting for this moment. Once activated, they'll create a stable quantum field that can trap the harvesters between dimensions. But they were never activated, Kex observed, his crystalline form vibrating with the rising energy in the chamber. We ran out of time, the hologram confirmed. The final sequence requires conscious direction from multiple points in spacetime simultaneously. We couldn't complete it alone, but together. Another violent tremor shook the facility. Through their comms came Araya's voice, distorted by interference. "Doctor, the spatial anomalies are everywhere. They're taking forms. Crew members are reporting seeing impossible things. People who can't be there. Places that don't exist." Lyra's scales went ice-white as she saw movement at the edge of her vision, a shape that looked like her clutchmate, dead for 20 years, walking through a wall as if it were water. "They're trying to confuse us," the hologram warned. "They learn, adapt, use our own memories against us. Trust nothing you see except through your quantum shields." Mira suddenly gasped, her cybernetic eyes widening. "The data. I understand now. The humans didn't just build weapons. They found a way to trap the harvesters by turning their own nature against them. The quantum resonators create a feedback loop in spacetime that forces them to exist in a single dimension." Kex finished, his crystalline structure pulsing with revelation. "Trapping them in a state of quantum collapse." The facility's lights flickered as more shadows took form around them. Through the walls came sounds that shouldn't exist, voices speaking in long-dead languages, footsteps walking on ceilings, the screech of metal being torn apart by forces that ignored physical laws. 80% complete, Mira reported. "But they're getting closer. The quantum shields won't hold much longer." The human hologram's form flickered urgently. "The activation sequence is contained in the final data packet, but you'll need to split up. The resonator network must be activated from 3 points simultaneously, triangulating the quantum field." "Split up?" Lyra's tail lashed anxiously. "With those things out there? It's the only way. The primary control node is here, but there are 2 auxiliary stations elsewhere in the facility. They must all be activated in perfect synchronization, or the field will collapse." Another violent tremor rocked the chamber. Through their comms came screams from the Asteria, not of pain or fear, but of minds encountering things they were never meant to comprehend. "Download complete," Mira announced, her cybernetic systems crackling with stored data. Lyra looked at her team, her scales settling into determined blue. "Kext, take the East Auxiliary Station. Mira, the West. I'll handle the primary node here. Araya, maintain quantum shield integrity as long as you can. The harvesters will try to stop you," the hologram warned. "They'll show you things. Memories, fears, desires. Your own worst nightmares given form. Remember, they can't affect anything within the quantum shields directly. Yet, they split up, each racing through corridors that seemed to twist and change with each step. Lyra saw impossible things as she ran. Doorways that opened onto alien worlds, corridors that looped back on themselves in geometric impossibilities, and always, the shadows that moved with purpose and hunger. Through it all, one thought kept her moving. Humanity hadn't just left them a warning. They'd left them a weapon. And now, after 100,000 years, it was finally time to use it. As she reached the primary control node, her scales shifted to pure white. Not from fear this time, but from determination. Above her, through kilometers of rock and metal, she could feel the harvesters fully manifesting on the Asteria, reality buckling under their presence. They had minutes, perhaps seconds, before the quantum shields failed completely. One chance to complete what humanity had started. One chance to save not just themselves, but every civilization that would ever rise to touch the stars. The human hologram flickered beside her one last time. Remember, synchronization must be perfect. The slightest deviation will collapse the field. Are you ready? Lyra's claws flew across the quantum controls as she responded. After 100,000 years, I'd say it's about time. Time seemed to stretch and distort as Lyra stood at the primary control node. Through the quantum-shielded comm system, she could hear her teammates breathing. Kex's crystalline resonance, Mira's cybernetic-enhanced respiration. Systems ready, Mira reported from the West Station, her voice steady despite the chaos. Quantum harmonics aligned, Kex added, his crystalline form humming with built-up energy. Above them, the Asteria had gone silent. No more screams, no more warnings. Just an ominous quiet that spoke of horrors beyond description. On my mark, Lyra commanded, her scales shifting through patterns of combat red and focus blue. 3, 2. Reality shattered. The chamber walls dissolved into impossible geometries as dozens of harvesters fully manifested, beings of non-Euclidean angles and depths that hurt to look at. They moved like oil through water, each motion defying the laws of physics. But worse than their appearance was their voice, a unified chorus that spoke directly into their minds. We met MBR, hey humans. They too thought they could to rap US. They too failed. 1. Lyra shouted, and all 3 team members activated their nodes simultaneously. The quantum resonators screamed to life. Energy coursed through channels carved into the planet's core, creating a web of light that spread outward at impossible speeds. Across the galaxy, thousands of hidden transmitters activated, responding to the signal humanity had planted 100,000 years ago. You cannot cage an finitude, the harvesters projected. We are woven to your comb por shine. We are. The quantum field snapped into place. For a moment, reality itself seemed to hold its breath. Then the harvesters began to scream. Field stability at 60%, Araya reported, her voice cutting through the chaos. Quantum resonance building. The human hologram flickered back to life, but something was different. It was no longer just a recording. The quantum energies had given it a kind of consciousness. The field is working, it announced. But there's a problem. The power requirements are beyond what we calculated. The resonators are burning out faster than expected. Lyra watched as the harvesters twisted and writhed, their forms being forced into normal space-time. How long will it hold? Minutes at most. Unless. The hologram hesitated. There is a way. The archive itself. The quantum cores contain enough energy to stabilize the field permanently. But channeling that much power would destroy everything here. Mira finished, her cybernetic systems calculating the implications, including us. The chamber shook violently as the harvesters fought against their dimensional cage. Cracks appeared in reality itself, leaking impossible colors and geometries that shouldn't exist. Field stability at 40%, Araya warned. Structural integrity failing. Lyra looked at the human hologram, understanding dawning in her mind. This was your plan all along, wasn't it? You knew the initial field wouldn't be enough. You needed conscious beings here, at this moment, to make the final choice. The hologram nodded. As we faced our end, we realized something. True victory sometimes requires the ultimate sacrifice. We couldn't make that choice for future civilizations. It had to be their decision. Field at 30%. Containment failing. Lyra's scales shifted to a color she'd never worn before. A deep, resolute gold. Kex, Mira, get back to the ship. I'll initiate the power transfer. Like hell, Mira responded, her cybernetic voice fierce. We started this together. The crystalline resonance of my form could help stabilize the transfer, Kex added. We all know what's at stake. The harvesters' screams reached a fever pitch as more of their kind were pulled into the field, forced into a reality they were never meant to inhabit. The quantum shields flickered as reality buckled under the strain. Field at 20%. Critical failure imminent. Lyra looked at her team, not just colleagues, but family forged in the crucible of discovery. Then she looked at the human hologram, seeing in its ancient eyes the same determination that had driven humanity to sacrifice everything to give future civilizations a chance. RIA, she commanded, initiate final power transfer. Full quantum core dump. Acknowledged, the AI responded, something like pride in her artificial voice. It has been an honor. The chamber erupted with energy as the quantum cores began to overload. Reality itself seemed to cry out as the power of a planetary computer was channeled into the containment field. The harvesters' screams turned to howls of rage, then fear as they realized what was happening. In her final moments, as the quantum energies reached critical levels, Lyra saw something extraordinary. The human hologram was joined by others, thousands of transparent figures, the stored consciousness echoes of those who had built this place. In their faces, she saw not defeat, but triumph. Thank you, the first hologram said, for finishing what we started. The quantum cores detonated. In an instant, the field expanded to encompass the entire galaxy. Every harvester, every dimensional breach, every twisted violation of reality was caught and crushed into normal space-time. The field stabilized, creating a permanent barrier between dimensions. The price was beyond calculation. The archive, the facility, the planet itself, and the brave souls who had triggered the final sequence. But across the galaxy, civilizations would continue to rise, to grow, to reach for the stars. And in the void where an ancient planet once orbited, a new quantum signal began to pulse, a warning, a memory, and a promise that in the darkest hour, when faced with an impossible choice, there will always be those willing to pay the ultimate price to ensure a future for others. Humanity's final gift was not just the weapon that saved the galaxy. It was the example they set, that true civilization means being willing to sacrifice everything to protect those who would come after. Their echo would resonate through eternity, a testament to the greatest victory of all, the triumph of consciousness over the void, of light over darkness, of hope over despair. In the end, humanity's last message wasn't just run. It was stand and fight. And in the 100,000 years that followed, no species ever forgot their sacrifice.